Everyone has a family. It may be your natural family or the family that you create around you. It may be a work family or a family of friends. Last week I had the pleasure to visit with family, some of whom I had never met, and some that I hadn't seen in many, many years. Although it was a pleasure to see everyone, the occasion was to remember my Uncle Bill, who died last year during the COVID quarantine. In a way, waiting a year for the memorial helped give some distance, and it became more of a celebration of his life than a mourning of his passing. It got me thinking about this episode's theme, family. Hi, I'm Tim Rose, and this is the Tim Tunes Podcast. In this episode, we'll cover 3 songs about family. The first song is a tribute to my dad. The next song is about my mother's mother. And finally, a little song about some family names. My dad spent his career in marble. He was a master draftsman. He worked 5.5 days a week until they had to tell him to stop. His job was to estimate the cost of installations of marble in institutions, homes, and businesses. Once a job was won, he was responsible for making any working drawings required to execute his estimate and to work with the foremen and masons to make sure the plans were faithfully executed. He had many beautiful installations. He was particularly proud of the renovation of the marble staircase in the old post office building on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. He told me that he made templates for the steps by hand to give to the marble masons to shape and place the stones. Dad was a man of few words, usually easygoing and very slow to anger. He had a very clever and dry sense of humor. I was one of 6 sons, and, like most of my generation, growing up, I didn't get a lot of dad time. After I got out of college, I was looking for a job, any job, just to have some money. Since I didn't have a car, I rode in to work with him and started walking back the way we came until I found a job. That way, I could ride with him and have a way to get to work every day. During that year, I got to spend many hours with my dad, just talking about different things and really getting to know him. Although it seemed like a big inconvenience at the time, I'll always treasure those times together. By the early 2000s, it became apparent that Dad was going downhill. My dad was never one to take charity. He always felt that he could do things himself and was reluctant to ask for help. So I came up with the metaphor of my dad as a taciturn marble rock. Sure, I get the reference of the rock equals Jesus, and you're free to see the song that way if you wish, but that was not my intent. I recorded this song in my studio around 2007. It's included in my family album recording. This is basically a repeating verse format. To keep the song interesting and to give a sense of growth, I changed the key of the song from verse to verse. There are 7 key changes in the song, so when people ask me what chords are in the song, I just say, all of them. Now, let's listen to You Are the Rock.
You are the rock where I was born, where first I stood and faced the sunny morn. Though your dream died when first I cried, you are the rock where I was born. You are the rock on which I played as the morning's haze burned away today. Though you seldom spoke, molested teacher joke. You are the rock on which I played. You are the rock where once I learned what's right from wrong, and that respect must be earned. I'll do as you've done, not as you say to do. You are the rock where once I learned. You are the rock I stood on to see across the fields through the midday heat, the path of my dreams and possibilities. You are the rock I stood on to see. You are the rock from which I flew in the late afternoon of my youth, where I always knew I could return to. You are the rock from which I flew. Let us be your rock. Your stonework is through. 6 men you have shaped, each one strong and true. You've done your best, you have earned your rest. Let us hold you up while you enjoy the view. You are the rock, you are the rock from which I'm hewn, from which I'm hewn. In the evening's glow, I carve my tune, a song so sweet, in form complete. Thanks to this stone from which I have grown.
When I was in college, I was in a stage production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in Frostburg, Maryland. My mom came up to see the show with her good friend Betty Frank. We went out to dinner before the show, and I wanted to warn my mom that I committed suicide in the play. She paused for a moment and then said, "My mother committed suicide when I was 10 years old." She told me that she had not been able to talk about it until she had gone through several years of therapy. She said that when she was a little girl, they told her, "You just don't talk about those things." So, she didn't. She held on to that for over 30 years before she could say it out loud. The official story was that a latch on the window gave way and she accidentally fell to her death. But my mother believed otherwise. Suicide has been something of a theme for that side of the family. I became fascinated by this grandmother that I never knew. Who was she? What was she like? There was a whole quarter of my family that I barely knew at all. Apparently, she was a little wild. There's a picture of her on a motorcycle in a t-shirt and shorts smoking a cigarette. The name Al, short for her name Alma, was written on the photograph. She had musical talent too. My mom said that she could play the piano and sing. She couldn't read music, but she could play anything once she heard it. Still, though, I could never really get a sense of who she was, and most likely, I never will. Recorded in my studio around 2006, here is Alma May.
Alma May, Alma May. They put you in a box and locked you away. Just 2 words that Daddy said the kids could never say. Alma May, Alma May, Alma May, Alma May, Alma May. What could have led you to that awful day? When you opened up that window and simply walked away. Alma May, Alma May, Alma May. You left 3 children crying with no one to dry their tears. No way to voice their anger, no way to speak their fears. So the questions and the doubts still linger after all these years. Alma May, Alma May, Alma May. Alma May, Alma May. They said that you could sing and you could play. I guess that's where I get it from, but I can't really say. Alma May, Alma May, why did you go away? The ripples that you started have yet to fade away. Alma May, Alma May, Alma May, Alma May, Alma May, Alma May.
So far in this episode, we've had sentimental and sad songs. Hopefully this next song will lighten the mood and bring a smile to your face and maybe even give you a little chuckle, if not a laugh out loud. This song really is about my mother's maiden name. I recorded this in my studio in the 2005 time frame. I went all out for internal rhymes on this one. Oh, and just a heads up. While there's nothing in this song that would give it an R rating, some might consider the concepts to be a bit rude, or at least something that you may not want to explain to your child. You've been warned. Okay, here we go with Maiden Name.
Sometimes the truth can be
affection needs its due, because names can have a way of causing some affliction, especially when that name belongs to you. This is the story of my mother's maiden name, as told from her son's point of view. Story told in innocence, but not one told in shame, for no one is to blame for this abuse. Her name is Dyke, that's right, D-Y-K-E with no Van Avant, soften the blow. Her name is Dyke, that's right, you see why I might have a little tale you'd like to know. Well, they say that it is all the same what it is that's in a name, and a rose by any other would smell sweet. But when the name that names a wall that once stood up so wet and tall stands for something else, it's bittersweet. Perhaps it was an aberration of an appellation that gave my kin the nickname that he bore. Would have been cute to call him Mike, but instead we dubbed him Dikey. We don't call him Dikey anymore. His name is Dyke, that's right, D-Y-K-E with no Van Avant to soften the blow. His name is Dyke, that's right, you see why I might have a little tale you'd like to know. Well, I did not know the double meaning and that mom's name could be demeaning until sometime after I flew the nest. I was sitting in the local pub, gulping down some suds and grub, when in two ladies came walking abreast. A friend of mine, as an aside, said words to me he thought were snide, but I mistook the meaning of his quip. I sauntered over to the pair, they look at me as I declare, I hear that you're both dykes, ain't that a trip? I called them dykes, that's right, D-Y-K-E with no Van Avant to soften the blow. I called them dykes, that's right, you see why I might have a little tale you'd like to know. Well, as she stood I realized that though she's only half my size, I'm leery of the damage she could do. As I detect that's not her sister, all I can do is choke a whisper, I just thought you'd like to know, I'm half dyke too. Well, I wish you could have seen us then, as frowns and fears turned into grins, and suddenly we all just laughed out loud. They explained to me as we got jolly the reason for my verbal folly, and though we shared no blood, I still felt proud. So the next time that you're in a bar, or maybe driving in your car, and see some gal but don't know what to do, don't be snide, don't be cruel, just be nice, cause as a rule she just might be akin to me or you. Don't call them dykes, that's right, D-Y-K-E with no Van Avant to soften the blow. Don't call them dykes, that's right, you see why I might have a little tale you'd like to know. That's all I've got to say, I've got to go.
Appellation. Did you catch that one? I still chuckle over that one from time to time. What? Yes, I know the quote-unquote real pronunciation is Appalachian, but an Appalachian appellation just isn't funny. Well, that one took a lot out of me. I hope you enjoyed it. If not, feel free to tell me what's wrong with me or my podcast or whatever. Whatever. Thanks for listening. A biento. That's for you, Joe, in case you're listening.